communities, and this is where my heart is, and as you've seen some of my passionate remarks. And so we'll just carry on through our last meeting with that passion, and we'll carry on next month and keep doing the great work of the system. And again, just thank you. Deeply, thank you for all that you do for the betterment of the students in our community. Thank you. Okay, I'll kick over to Mr. Murphy. You want to go?
I think Dr. Gall is going to kick us off today.
I am. So,
thank you.
Yep. Good morning. So we have two topics for you today. The first, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Cash, our curriculum specialist for world languages, and then the second is a course guide updates, so that you'll know what's going into the course guide for the next school year. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cash, so he can present on world languages.
Good morning to all. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. Always a pleasure to talk about my second favorite passion. I should say my third, wife and family being first and second. So time to talk about.
Wise man.
Is she watching the recording?
About world languages. So here is a bulleted list of the things that I'll be discussing, hopefully briefly. Unless, of course, you have some questions for me that we will do our best to entertain. And if I don't readily have the response, and then I will do what I have been properly trained to do, and that is defer to Dr. Gall for the okay. We have a number of pathways. Our courses start as early as 6th grade, potentially with a World Language Exploratory class. That can be a half year, can also be a full year, can be taken once by students in grades 6, 7, or 8. It is a survey course intended to expose students to cultures and languages, kind of the language trees, and some different aspects of international interests throughout the world. The high school credit can begin as early as 7th grade, and it is a accredited year-long class. So a student could potentially leave middle school with 2 world language credits, and of course then going into high school with additional opportunities to study from level 3 on up through. Our languages that we currently teach are American Sign Language, ASL, French, Latin, and Spanish, and a class, Spanish for bilingual speakers, that is intended for students who are first, second, or third generation Spanish speakers, that has more of a focus on literacy. As is the custom, the interest for specific languages is driven by that which the students request, and of course the availability of personnel to teach those classes. Noteworthy to mention also here as well that we need to have, or students need to have, at least 2 levels of the same world language to satisfy the high school completer. That is one way that students may satisfy that completer, or they can take a completer through career and technical education pathway. Just kind of some trends in enrollment over the last few years in middle school, French and Spanish, and spike that happened in French in 2023, 2024. And we now have 1 middle school. We previously had 2. Crestwood that is doing the Spanish for bilingual speakers, and at least a couple of times before, although not represented here, it was also taught at Monocacy Middle School as well. The high school courses, levels 1 through 4, again, a look at enrollment here. We have the Spanish enrollment, which maintains itself as the most popular language, and the Spanish for bilingual speakers, although once defunct, has now been reinstated at some high schools, which is again a rigorous course that intends to address the students' literacy after they've had some exposure to the language. The last column only highlights semester 1, and obviously that enrollment will be different for semester 2 once the classes have changed. Our advanced placement and advanced studies in French or Spanish, the advanced studies class is a class that is designed to prepare students for the College Board's course in advanced placement. There is also an opportunity for students to take the advanced studies class immediately after AP, which in some cases is done as an independent study. This year, the system was very supportive in helping me to secure new texts for all levels of Spanish. So we have Carnegie text, Que Chévere, that we're using for levels 1 through 4, and some Vista text that we're using for the AP class, God bless you, the Advanced Studies class, as well as the AP class. We've had already some virtual sessions with those companies to hear from the teachers regarding their experiences, their successes, and their challenges. Next month, in December, we will have face-to-face meetings with representatives from these companies as well. And there's also a stipulation in the contract for both companies to provide some on-site support and actually assisting with teachers for the implementation of the curriculum and to see how that platform is working. To date, I'm happy to report that the vast majority of the teachers have indicated that the platform and the integration through Schoology is working very favorably, and students are responding well to the same. The benchmarks are 3 assessments that we utilize at different points throughout either the middle school class or the high school classes to gauge students' progress, as well as to inform teachers what more needs to be done in terms of teaching or remediating information that was previously taught. This happens in French through a series of assessments called an integrated performance assessment. That is, a student takes a topic and deals with it in terms of listening, reading, writing, and speaking to mirror something that is actually realistic in the real world, and to mirror the tenets of second language acquisition. The other ones happen in terms of paper and pencil, as well as production, for example, in ASL, recording certain pieces and communicating with the teacher in the target language. Because of the transition to the new text, we have suspended the benchmark assessments for this year just for the Spanish, and we'll put those back in place in the coming school year. Articulation and collaboration here, our less commonly taught languages in FCPS are ASL, French, and Latin. And what happens as far as this articulation and collaboration is because in many buildings, these persons are often one of one or at most one of two. And so those persons tend to meet 3 to 4 times a semester via Google Meet and share best practices. Again, their concerns and their challenges with how that is happening, order to ensure that we have not only just vertical articulation, but horizontal articulation as well. It is also noteworthy to mention that in January, all feeder patterns, irrespective of language, will be meeting virtually in a Google Meet format to talk about assessment, to talk about a seamless transition from middle school to high school. And the Spanish teachers are famous for doing this throughout the school year on social media and through a page that they have established just for themselves, in which they call themselves the world's greatest Spanish teachers. The Seal of Biliteracy is a credential that was fostered, or shall I say, is given under the auspices of the Maryland State Department of Education. Its intention is to recognize students who have proficiency in at least one other language other than English. It's noteworthy to mention that for this year, the students only need sit for the English 10 assessment, and next year, the state specialist is advocating that something be written into COMAR that requires a specific score. So that has yet to be determined. If students take the AP exam in Frederick, thanks to Mr. Murphy and his work with our SIS team, those students now automatically qualify for the seal, and then there is a list or a compendium of other assessments that the students may sit for, and once they earn a qualifying score, in addition to sitting for the English 10 assessment, those students also qualify for the Seal of Biliteracy. This is typically done at the high school level, and students receive that honor during their commencement exercises. This screen shows, or slide rather, shows you the number of seals that were awarded last year. You will note that there are seals there for languages that we do not teach, and so it is available to students whether they have sat for a class or not. If a student has a proficiency in a given language, he or she can certainly go and take said assessment and receive the seal of illiteracy, and they submit that information to the appropriate contact at their high school. Dual enrollment, given that the tuition has been, I'll say lifted, has been favorable for us. We have students at Brunswick High School have the Latin 101 and 102 experiences available to them through the school, and then of course through Open Campus. And so we now have some 60 plus students who are currently enrolled in French, Latin, Spanish, and ASL to receive credits for dual enrollment that of course we obviously use to satisfy the high school language completer itself. Every summer, I have the consummate pleasure and opportunity of working with elementary students to offer a camp that's approximately 2 weeks, wherein we give younger students an exposure to various languages. And this past summer, students had an opportunity to learn some basic phrases in ASL, French, German, Portuguese, and Spanish. And then on the other side of the house, there was a Spanish immersion camp with a slice of Latin purposely coupled so the students understand the derivatives and kind of how it serves as the basis for Romance languages. At the end of the 2 camps, parents joined us for a closing ceremony, and students did some singing and some dancing and provided them with facts of some of the things that they had learned during this experience. There is currently a course that will be taught second semester, classical mythology. It's a general world language elective. It does not, either of these will satisfy the high school world language completer. That will be taught at Brunswick High this year. And by Mrs. Bentley. Mrs. Bonner is currently teaching the Hispanic Cultures class at Walkersville High. Both of these classes are taught in English and have been written such that no prerequisites of the language are required in order for students to matriculate in the same. And they have been added to the course guide and will be available to everyone in the coming school year. Also want to mention that we are currently, Ms. Quill and I, a French teacher, are working on a Francophone cultures class that Mr. Caulfield plans to offer, given the scheduling allows the same in the coming school year. And then once we have done successful implementation, we'll also make that class available to all schools in the system the following school. Questions, comments, discussion?
Well, thank you for the presentation. I'll start with Mr. J for everything because he usually has the shortest window for availability. And then we can make sure we address any of your remarks first, Mr. J.
No, just wanted to do the presentation. Muy bien.
Gracias.
Mr. Betts?
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. So one question, how typical is it for students to complete their world language credit requirements in middle school? And how often are students completing it in high school?
Okay, so the vast majority of the students, the last time that I checked, which would have been the last school year, that take 1 and 2 in high school, please forgive me for not having more precise numbers, well over 80 to 85% of those students go on to take at least level 3 in high school. And then there is the big drop off, okay? I would dare say, without again having data in front of me, that the vast majority probably leave, or more students, not majority, more leave with 1 credit from middle school as opposed to 2. Of course, there are students who will not start this experience at all until they get into high school, and they have many more opportunities there because the classes are semesterized. But the vast majority of those students who do take it in middle school tend to do pretty well even after they get into the 3rd level, because they have started it at a younger age, which is more ideal time.
Right, right. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, I can't specifically quote, but I think we've all seen the research of starting languages earlier, I don't know, help students develop those language skills. But is the choice generally the family's choice of, okay, in 7th grade, I want to prioritize taking this language versus something else, or how many classes are offered in the school? How does that all pan out?
I want to say it's a mixed bag. I can certainly defer to the two middle school administrators here, or at least former middle school administrator, and maybe they can speak from their experiences. But I think it's generally driven by parent interest, and obviously in terms of availability of the class and the staff to teach it. I don't know if Mr. Saunders or Dr. Vedder would have more to offer from their experiences in middle school.
Well, I'm happy to jump in too.
Okay.
Just from a curricular perspective, one of the things we've done in recent years is really open up options with electives, particularly starting in 7th and 8th grade. So the answer is yes, that students are and families are really driving those decisions because they might really want to pursue music or pursue STEM or the CTE pathways. World languages starting in 7th grade is another one of those options, but there are 7 classes in a typical middle school day. And so if after the 4 major content areas in PE and health, there's really only 2 additional to select from. So it's really driven by student and family interest in those middle school choices.
I mean, for me, that's really encouraging that students and families are making the choices. I feel like as we continue to face tight budgets, I do worry on just having that decision made by, it's offered at some middle schools but not all middle school, or it's offered in a certain number of, there's a certain number of seats available but not sufficient. But I don't know, driven by student and family interest is really encouraging. The other thing I was really encouraged by was the ASL enrollment. I just think it is such a, there's so much of our diversity in Frederick County, to me, includes our deaf and hard of hearing population. I would not have guessed that our number of students taking ASL is quite this high, so I'm really encouraged by this. I guess I don't know if this is fully driven by, curricular decisions that we've made or student interest, but I'm very encouraged by it. Honestly, maybe my main question is, as ASL is now, right, we see it's more students enrolled in ASL in high school than French, whether there could be an opportunity to offer ASL at the middle school level in the way that we also offer French at the middle school level.
So, as you have stated, ASL, due to the very nature of the language and the fact that students are perhaps in ASL more than some of the spoken Romance languages, they are readily able to see the results of their labor, often in the community and in real time. And so that gratification is instant. It also affords students an opportunity who are not maybe as inclined to do the traditional conjugation or derivatives or declensions of verbs and those kinds of things. And I don't just mean for IEP students, I mean for students who just want to be maybe more vocal or more productive or more emotional with their language. So the challenge there is that the number of ASL teachers who have applied to this district in the 15 years that I've been here, I can count them on one hand.
Yeah.
So the availability of personnel is really a challenge for the state task force to look at that, and we've been working with some schools, in particular Gallaudet, to try to address that. It is maybe no surprise that you can leave with a degree in ASL or interpretation and go into so many other fields that are much more lucrative. I mentioned to Dr. Gull, I think it was maybe last week, where there's an ASL teacher, there could easily be another 2 or 3 And maybe the unintended consequence is that students then go into ASL as opposed to some of the Spanish or some of the French. They'll start it out with a half-time teacher. Now they have 2 full-time ASL teachers and probably could use a third.
I will say that, to give Dr. Cash kudos, he does really reinforce the importance of a broad range of offerings in terms of languages, and is really working hard to support like the development of the Francophone Cultures course to develop student interest in multiple languages so that we can maintain that diversity as well.
Thank you for your work on this.
Dr. Cash, I don't know, another kudos to you. I don't know if this helps Mr. Bass, but you want to share a little bit about a remote French program?
Oh, absolutely. Thank
We
you.
allow,
Thank you.
to your point, if there is not a staff member available in a school, what you've done.
And kudos to Mr. Saunders as well. Because, seriously, because I went to his office and said, hey, I have a thought, I have an idea, whatever, and he said, I have some money, and so that's always a good sign. So we have a number of middle schools where, for the last 4 years, where there was not a French teacher, but we have a retired French teacher who retired from Middletown Middle, who said, oh, I will happily work and continue to do this virtually as long as I don't have to leave my home, because she's relocated to West Virginia. So we now have those middle school principals who, under Mr. Saunders' leadership, have come together to work out a schedule such that those students are able to take French in the middle school where there is no French teacher, so that they could have that experience as well, and that continues to go extremely well.
Outstanding collaboration and maintaining the relationship with our retirees. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have a question. So the survey of Spanish or language courses at the middle school, at what point will the high school requirements be satisfied? Is there any requirement for language in high schools? Okay, so I thought there was, but you said survey courses, and I'm thinking,
It's an exploratory course.
Right.
At the middle school level, but then that helps them decide, do I want to take French, do I want to take Spanish? It exposes them to the multiple languages. It's when they sign up for a specific language for high school credit that then they
Okay.
take 2 successful years, and that satisfies them.
and so that would be at the high school level.
Or they
Yeah.
can start it in middle school. They can start 7th and 8th grade are the years that they can take a high school credit in Spanish or French or different.
Okay. I'm a middle schooler, and he's in Spanish, and I thought, well, I don't think this is high school. This,
Seven. So there's a distinction between the exploratory course and the high school credit course. So if the course in middle school is labeled Spanish,
Yes.
it's for high school credit towards graduation requirements.
Okay, I'll have to ask. Or look in school. I guess I don't know how I determined that, just by the course title. I wanted him to take a language. That was the discussion we had at home. He doesn't believe in travel and exposure, and so he is, in Spanish. So that's how we put it on the schedule, or we requested it, and fortunately, when we got the schedule, this was on there.
Yes. If it is the Spanish one, as Mr. Murphy said, Spanish 1, Spanish 2, then those are high school credited courses. Otherwise, the name of the course would be World Language Exploratory.
I'll check tomorrow, or maybe next week. And then my deep concern is the budget, as Mr. Bass has already stated. I worry about languages, instrumental music, any of the broader educational opportunities for students being reduced with things like increasing class sizes, because the direct impact of that is reducing the offerings that we can have for our students. So what are we doing to address that? Because I don't know where we're going to head from here. I mean, the budget, that doesn't look any better to me.
We're currently taking a look at everything. We're looking for efficiencies in every department and seeing where we can possibly offer even more efficiencies. But it's a tough conversation. Last year's budget was very challenging, and we see this budget being equally as challenging coming up. So we know they're hard decisions in the future. We're prepared to make them and move forward. But it's not going to be easy, Ms. Johnson.
So, like, are we using a rubric for what might be on the chopping block, or where we're not going to expand?
Well, we've just started the conversation, and we don't anticipate any enhancements this year.
Okay.
We are looking at inflation and compensation. Those will be the two big things. And once again, we will have difficult decisions to make, but we are in the process of working hard at efficiencies.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you're affirming that this is already something that is like in the front and center of the radar.
Very much.
So, because that's,
Clayball is meeting with each department. We're talking about where we can find efficiencies. That's our reality right now.
okay.
And to keep in
Prioritizing
mind
students.
that with all of that, regardless of where it lands, we are still obligated to provide a well-rounded curriculum.
Right.
And that includes art, and that includes music, that includes world languages, that includes technology. We'll find a way. It may not be as, we may not have as the specialty courses, or when student interest starts to dwindle in a particular area. Those are the tough decisions that have to be made in schools of when student interest starts to wane. But when we continue to have student interest in Spanish, as an example, we will still be able to provide.
And creative problem solving, like the remote teacher teaching French. We don't have to have a full-time French teacher at each middle school because we can use that. So it's creative problem solving that we'll be working on together in collaboration with other departments.
Okay, thank you very much for reassuring me on that as a member of the board who won't be voting on the next budget. I just see, I know what's coming to the new board members. And I guess cushion that blow as much as you can. So, thank you for the creative solution efforts, and I think this is awesome. I mean, I would love to see every student have languages in elementary school.
As I'm sure Dr. Cash would feel the same.
We can maybe recall some of the events of yesterday if you want to run for re-election.
Thank you.
Thinking.
Thank you, Dr. Cash. We
Thank you.
Ms. Sisler, I think it's your turn.
Ms. Johnson.
Oh.
Spanish 1, he's in.
Pardon?
He's in Spanish 1.
Oh, you check.
You're quick.
Anything else
You
you
got
wanna
people.
add?
Yeah, you got an 89% in the first quarter.
Now, as we transition to the course guide, we'll make sure that it is crystal clear in the course guide.
I don't see it as like being like in Spanish 1, so it's just like, hey, language. As soon as I saw language, make sure someone tells Dr. Cash. As soon as I saw that come up, I'm like, I don't care what you think, Matt, you're taking a language, or we'll sign you up for it. So I'd hate to see those opportunities get missed. And I'm telling you, I'll never forget the emails we had from the students at Urbana who lost their dance teacher. I mean, it breaks those things break my heart, like literally, like you don't forget.
And not always directly part of our budget discussions on expanding class size. I understand we all knew there would be but you don't know exactly where it'll hit. And then, not good, or not easy.
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody got hurt, and so it's like, how do we, I don't know how you make it more efficient, but I know you're trying, so, and probably feel the same way, we do. I guess ultimately it's our vote on the budget, but like, I lost a lot of sleep over last budget, so. In fact, I didn't vote for it, because I didn't feel like we went through the best process of understanding, like, everything that was going on. I don't, maybe ultimately it wouldn't have been any different, but I just was uneasy about how it all went down, so I like the way the the budget map is laid out more clearly this year, and I think there's just a higher level of tuning into like impacts of decisions, so that we're not there on May 14th having to make decisions without realizing. I didn't know like the extent of the repercussions, but we might have wound up with the same thing.
And yet, none of the three of us will be able to
I
vote
know,
for this next
I
budget.
know, but we can help, help the next, because
Yes.
my greatest hope will be that as as I think we have done as a board, is work together to try to advance the mission of the school system. You know, so it really doesn't matter who's in the seats. Let's leave it, the framework and the infrastructure from a board side as good as possible. We know we have great staff in place, but how do we just make sure we're communicating as effectively as possible so that like the decision that we're landing on the best of the worst cases of, you know, decision making that have to be made, because it's just, it's unenviable. I know it's hard on everybody, so thank you. So, course guide updates.
Okay.
That's us.
Okay.
So this is the time of year when we publish the course guides for next school year. This is the time of year where we really start to begin the process of course offerings, scheduling, all things next school year starts now. So this is the time where we bring to the committee maybe courses that were approved back in March by the board, or program adjustments that we've made since that time, sometimes technical changes that we want to share with the committee. Anything that's new that's being published in our course guides this year. This is one actually that, as long as this committee supports, the specific courses that we talk about today will go to the full board as a consent item at the next meeting, because they are new courses that will appear in the course guide. So that's what we're going to do just for the next few minutes. We'll start with middle school and then go to high school. I will say, as I said earlier, we've done a lot of work in recent years as it relates to middle school programming, particularly in the elective areas, art, music, PE, the world languages we just talked about. Over the last 2 and 3 years, we've brought to you really significant changes in the elective areas. This year, it's much more stable. And so we're really, I think, in a much better place of ensuring that there's lots of access and options for students to really begin to pursue those interests in middle school. Our most substantive update in middle school is in mathematics. This is year 2 of a revised pathway in middle school mathematics that gets at math acceleration in the middle school years. We know that students show readiness for math advancement, particularly for Algebra 1, at different times in their learning journey. Some students in 9th, some students in 8th. We know that some students show readiness for algebra as early as grade 7. And so this is a snapshot of our current state. Currently, in grade 5, there's a accelerated math experience. There has been for many years. Currently in grade 6, this year we offered a course known as Math 7 Accelerated, which can take students to algebra in 7th or 8th grade. But if you note, our current state in grade 8, if a student is on track to take geometry in grade 8, the only option really current state is a virtual course. And the only option current state is taking algebra and geometry in the same year, which is a lot to handle for some middle school students. So that's part of the compelling why of how we got here. I want to give credit to Stacy Sisler, our math specialist who's in the audience, Mr. Saunders, who's helped us really build this out in recent years. But we know that these options, students need different options in the middle school years on their math trajectory. And so this really opens up those possibilities earlier, as well as, like I said earlier, allows students to take algebra and geometry for a full year instead of accelerated fashion in 8th grade in a virtual course. And so that's one of the problems we're trying to solve is coming out of the pandemic, that virtual course. We really wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity to take it in person in their local school with a geometry teacher. And so this long-term vision does allow every student to be served in person in their school when they're ready for math acceleration towards algebra and geometry in the middle school years. It also provides opportunities to speed up or slow down on-ramps and off-ramps, depending on where that student is. And this also gives us ensuring that, again, when we're able to offer these courses in every school with teachers in every local school, it helps us to expand access for our traditionally underrepresented students and build on some of the accelerated models we have in elementary school. So the new model, now where we're moving the cohorts of students through middle school, what will be new next year is a 7th grade algebra course in person. Again, this will be new because up to this point, it's only been in 8th grade, and when combined with geometry, only virtual. So this pathway is what is new. This cohort of students began in 6th grade this year, and for the first time in many years, this actually was a model that was in place many, many years ago. This is the first time probably in about a decade where algebra in grade 7 is back in the course guide as a possibility, to then progress to geometry the following year. So that is the most significant update for middle school. We thought we would just kind of stop there to see if there was specific questions about middle school program math before we jump to high school.
Well, even starting at the beginning with Math Pathway Grade 5, the advanced math, and sometimes I think, I should know this, but if students are sitting together in the same elementary school classroom, are then they separating out into two different math classes, or are students from the start of the year all put together in an advanced math class?
It's a great question. You might have heard me refer to what's called the cluster group model in elementary school. What that means is within a classroom, there is a cluster group of students who've been identified for math acceleration. And at a particular point in the mathematics block, those students at various times throughout a week are given enrichment and acceleration of the grade 6 standards. They're not separated to a different class or with a different teacher. There may be some creative scheduling that happens within the local school, but the bottom line is the teacher of record, the classroom teacher, is still responsible for the enrichment and the acceleration of the grade 6 standards within the grade 5 classroom.
Just briefly, what is the feedback from the teachers on that? Do they, I don't know, enjoy the opportunity to teach at multiple levels of on-grade level and enrichment? Are there concerns about, I don't know, potentially not enough prep time to meet the level of each student?
It's challenging, this model. It puts it on us in curriculum to design a curricular approach and some cohesion to what the students are learning with the grade 5 standards, and then for some students layered on grade 6 standards. So we do provide a fair amount of professional learning for those teachers to help them do that. We also, you may know that in the elementary school we use the HQIM known as the iReady Math curriculum. For this group of students we use iReady grade 6, so the teachers have exactly what they need right there to be able to embed the grade 6 standards for the students who are in this course. Some districts do separate students and just send them to a different teacher. We're probably, in the future as we look down the road in elementary school, we're probably going to have more schools doing what we call departmentalization, which is a teacher only teaches math or a teacher only teaches reading at the elementary level, but that's not across the board right now. But those are some of the structures that support teachers in pulling this off.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Mr. J?
Thank you. I'm glad to see the differentiation for students who are excelling in those grades for math. It's going to help them a lot down the line. To Ms. Beckett's point about making sure we have our teachers supported, I concur with that thought. Even though we're providing this differentiation, make sure our teachers are equipped is a good thought. So thank you for having that in mind as well. I think it's a really good thing. I've seen in my own household and also with other people in the community that we have advanced learners in Pritchard County, and so having those math classes earlier on are really good for the students. So thank you very much for doing that.
I have a couple of questions related to this. And thank you for the presentation. Thank you for continuously trying to adjust to make sure we're meeting our student needs in the best way possible and in a pragmatic manner. Is geometry considered like a high school
Yes.
level yeah, I should be actually talking, because, yeah, so that you would typically have that as in a regular student pathway, you would hit geometry in high school. Okay.
Most students hit geometry in high school.
Okay, so,
A typical pathway would be Algebra 1 in 9th grade, Geometry in 10th grade, Algebra 2 in 11th grade, another math elective in 12th grade.
okay. In thinking about our tremendous increase in dual enrollment, in order to have students be able to satisfy the math requirements for almost any degree at FCC, it makes sense that, you know, we can get them through their high school requirements finished by the sophomore year. But I think don't we have to require 4 years of math in Maryland? So is that like going into any of the thought process of how we're developing our pipeline for students so that we can continue to kind of like keep that channel flowing of students that like might not be impeded by some aspect of trying to pursue the early college, and actually open campus, like getting them over there as soon as they're eligible. So what's the
Yes,
problem?
yes, and yes. First of all, you know, one of the things that's happening at the state level is sort of a redesign of the way high school math works in terms of pathways. Trying to get students to think about careers and which math courses head towards those careers. So not every student needs to take calculus, right? It may be a statistics pathway. It may be a different type of math trajectory, which dual enrollment becomes.
I literally was having a conversation with a student interested in cybersecurity, asking what kind of math they felt like they needed to have. So that was.
Yeah, so it's important that we make those math, when we're talking about math pathways through high school and dual enrollment into a degree, that students are also thinking about career path. So by doing this in middle school, therefore kind of opens up those options so the basic requirements are out of the way. And if there is a specific career path in cybersecurity in mind, or in engineering in mind, or some of these STEM fields in mind, that there are math requirements, as you know, that students need to hit to be able to access those programs. The other thing is that when students take this option, algebra in grade 7, geometry in grade 8, college courses, by the time they get to junior and senior year, are pretty much required, pretty much necessary, because they'll kind of go all the way through the FCPS courses, and by that point, you're on a path to college level courses in junior and senior year, and in most cases, that means dual enrollment. We have students who will take AP Calculus and AP Stat, but most of the students on this pathway will end up in a dual enrollment math course by the time they get to the second half of high school.
So if someone were taking accelerated math, a grade 7 student taking accelerated math, what would they then take next year? And then someone in 6th grade, if we're talking about the changeover, like how, is it gonna be seamless? Like, I don't understand, like, are we gonna just kind of teach out this pattern? So if you'll stay on this if you're in 7th grade now, and then, or 6th grade.
Right, so.
I'm having a hard time articulating myself, but I think you know what I
We have
mean.
one more year of this 8th grade next year, right, as they rotate through. We are starting the crew that will have the full year geometry and full year algebra as incoming 6th graders next year. That helps.
So they would take,
So if you're in advanced academics next year, you will have a semester of geometry and a semester of algebra
if you're in,
going into 8th grade.
going in 8th grade, and what would you be in now to have that?
Say that again?
So like to take, yeah, what would you, if you're in 7th grade now, what
What math are you taking?
what math are you taking?
So we have, do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah.
Come to the table.
Come on up to the
Sorry,
table.
I just want to understand how, like, how the shift is happening.
So we have students currently in 7th grade who are in 8 honors,
Right,
because in 6th grade they were in 7th honors. So 5th
Right.
grade they took the math pathway, which is the accelerated pathway. 6th grade they took 7 honors.
right.
7th grade they take 8 honors. 8th grade, they will take the semesterized algebra geometry. So we have a cohort of students who are in that current pathway right now. But then we have students this year in grade 6 who went from the math pathway in elementary school to the 7 accelerated course. Those students in 7th grade will take Algebra 1, and in 8th grade will take geometry year-long in their middle schools. So we'll, for a year or two of transition, we'll have both pathways running.
Okay, so you'd be like teach out, and Mr. Vedder, you may want to check on this. I think my son's in accelerated math. So like, what would he then take next year? Is he still going to be on this current, or
Is
will
he
go
in
over?
accelerated math as a 6th grader or a
No,
7th?
he's a 7th grader.
So if he's a 7th grader in 7th grade accelerated,
Yes.
most of those students, the vast majority, take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, which is still an accelerated path of study because Algebra 1 is typically considered a 9th grade course.
Algebra 1. But then it shows on the proposed math option, this is just, again, for rising grade 7. So you're kind of teaching out the current
Yeah.
one. Okay.
To address your point about a smooth transition,
Yeah.
this is taking a couple of years to phase in with 2 cohorts kind of happening side by side.
Okay. And I'm sorry for my college term, we just call them teach outs. You know, you just like kind of let the students on the current path just finish,
Yep.
and you just keep offering so that they're not, you know, impeded by the new changes. And we had done this in the math because we had a significant population of students that needed developmental math. So the college made a big effort to try to combine courses so that they were credit and non-credit rolled together. To help with the retention, you know, to like, you know, there are students that would just continuously fail developmental math and then like not complete their degree. So I want to make sure that, and I'm sure you are, but I couldn't see it here, that you know, how the teaching would work for students currently in the pipeline. All right, so if a member of the general public says, well, you know, I hear or I see that our scores, you know, only 30% of our students are ready, you know, achieving their math goals or whatever. What can we say to them to address that?
These kids are achieving their math goal.
Right.
But these
but
are
for the-
most likely the students who are in that 30%.
Mm-hmm.
We have very few students, if any, who in the accelerated pathway, either the regular acceleration or this math pathway acceleration, that do not meet proficiency, even in the high school credited classes.
So what are we doing? I know this is about the course changes, but I'm just gonna be like, if a member of the public, they're gonna ask this question and probably ask it, you know, to me, but while I'm still on the board and afterwards, what are we doing to help with improving our math ableness in our students? Right? I don't wanna hear, oh, we were just focusing on the high achievers.
No, oh, we are definitely not. So that work actually starts down in elementary school. And we've been engaging as a team, both our elementary team and our secondary team, and Mr. Murphy and several other collaborators on our comprehensive math plan that we need to submit to the state of Maryland. And we've submitted a draft. And in that draft, we've addressed multi-tiered system of supports for students, which includes not only our accelerated pathways, but our intervention pathways and our response to early numeracy, our response to algebra. Some of that is in our curricular design and in the resources that come with our high-quality instructional materials. And in elementary school, Mr. Murphy already mentioned that that's the iReady Math program, and in middle school through Algebra 2, that's our Reveal Math program. And so we have work around where we can build in those supports for all the different learning needs, differentiated supports, language supports, intervention supports. And so we continue to develop our curricular programming around that multi-tiered system of supports, going clear through math acceleration.
Okay. And I really appreciate having this conversation here, even though it's not directly on this course guide, because this ties into work that I don't know when I'll be able to bring it up, but Dr. Wright's policy on literacy where if the students are not achieving their literacy goals by 3rd grade and their teachers are feel that they won't make up that time in 4th grade, that they will be held back. And that was a policy passed. That needs to, like, it's not been printed anywhere except like in Maryland Matters, you know, and that needs to be a big message sent out, you know, and so I won't be around to help like beat the drum to say, hey, we need to talk about this, we need to inform our families, that it's not like a bad thing, we just want to make sure your literacy goals are being met, and so like, and the math ties in together, so.
Well, and on the heels
Someone
of
put
the
this on the
literacy
radar.
policy, the state is also developing their math policy. I was at a collaborative, and it will be a math policy, a pre-K to 12 math policy. It will not necessarily be a numeracy policy, which is where a lot of work focuses, but numeracy will be part of what's in the greater math policy. And they also did speak to multi-tiered system of supports. They've spoken to things like course audits to make sure we're offering the right courses and the right kind of supports for all of our students. But that work at the state, that draft is not going to the state board until January, I believe. So there's a lot of iteration that's happening between now and then with the math policy to address all of
And do you
this.
think there would be a possibility that, you know, if a student is not, I don't know what would lead, but it sounds like the literacy side is meeting things. It's the first time I've actually heard of like this students being held back, retained. I don't know what the correct
That has
word
not
would
come
be.
up in the conversations that I've been able to be a part of in terms of the development of the math policy. But again, what they reiterated to us is that it's been a very iterative process, and they are still examining it on the heels of the decisions that were made for the literacy policy. So it's hard to predict where exactly they will land. But there will be attention to addressing early numeracy needs. There will be attention to algebra readiness before students get to Algebra 1. There will be attention to multi-tiered system of supports for all students, including responsible acceleration. There will be attention to course structures and standards revision to make sure that access for rigorous learning is possible for all students. Those are all components that they've specifically highlighted in their work in developing the math policy.
And then Dr. Vetter, you're leaving.
That's okay,
I
you have
have
a note.
information for you.
Just
not going to announce it publicly.
Radar about the math, like the students that potentially are not meeting their literacy goals. Are we correlating any of their math skills data?
There's a lot of work to be done, but it's certainly in the forefront of our minds.
I just wanted to share context too, because I think as you asked originally, what would you say to the public? We're still in the middle school in the top 5 districts with our math scores. So I think it's important to realize that there may be questions around the assessment itself, because they're actually in the next year or two going to look at potentially doing the math exam again. And so I think that's important, and we've had, out of the last 5 years, I think, Scott, correct me, or Kathy, 3 different renditions of the MCAP. So it's hard to even compare one year to the past year because the test keeps changing. So I think those are all pieces, not making excuses. We clearly need to make sure every student every day gets great math instruction. But I think in context, this is a state and national concern. And I do think that brings questions to the assessments that we're providing right now and the alignment of curriculum and the assessment. So I think that's a really important factor for us all to keep in mind as we move forward.
Thank you. I didn't mean to hold you up.
Well, I'm double booked for a budget meeting too, but I do have information about your son.
Thank you.
I also wanted to respond to a couple of your questions, Ms. Johnson. Back to literacy policy, since you brought it up.
I don't know where else to bring it.
So we're-
I'm
so
sorry
let's-
I'm going off topic, but
So,
this was a big
I
first
just
deal
wanted
for me.
to assure you and the board and the public that, rest assured, we saw this coming. It was just passed on October 22nd. We're going to be talking with the board. We're going to be talking with our regulation review committee. We're going to be talking with the community. They're going to hear things about potential retention of a grade 3 student. But buried in the policy, for example, is a parent-initiated exemption. There are a really important look at multiple measures, never a single test score determining. And so this was just, in the last 2 weeks. And so there'll be a lot of work as well as public conversation around those exact concerns that you brought up about literacy. And obviously, there's a bleed over to math. This particular slide, as you said, was just meant to bring you something that's new with that geometry course in grade 8. But absolutely, there's a much bigger math picture here. And part of it is that in mathematics, there is no one-size-fits-all in terms of a course sequence and when students are ready to speed up or slow down their mathematics journey. And so we believe that this opens up more options to be able to really customize the math experience for every single student.
Thank you for indulging me. I had no other venue to start this out there, and I think it's important that we can communicate that this is, hey, we know about this, and that we have a plan, or we're working on our plan right now. So sorry, because I know I like to try to stay on topic, but I had to hijack.
Fair enough, understood,
Yes.
and
Okay.
understood. And it's. Go ahead, Mr. J.
Apologies, I have to step out as well. I'm sure Mr. Vedder, I also have a book for a meeting. With students, of course.
Is that it?
So I think, yeah,
Oh,
thank you so
okay.
much. Have a great day.
See you
Thank
later.
Mr. J.
All right.
And again, with the literacy policy, there's many of the more substantive issues and topics are in some of the out years. It's not immediate, so
Okay.
more to come.
Thank you.
Got it?
Yeah, so I do need to support one of my team
Another
upstairs in
double
an MSDE meeting. So that starts at 11. So my section was the high school portion of this presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to my very capable partner, Mr. Murphy, who will walk you through our high school course guide updates.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'll have lots of questions.
Well, let's see. High school actually is a little bit more technical in nature, but I think the last one you'll be excited about, Ms. Johnson. So these are new courses that were already approved back in March by the board. These are appearing in our course guide for the first time, so we just like to draw attention to it and sort of memorialize the fact that these are now new courses in the course guide. The other changes in the AFA, the Academy of Fine Arts, there's basically some new course titles that are happening there. So we'll see an acting class for the first time. We'll see a playwriting and directing class for the first time. These are just basically iterations of curriculum that has existed with new names and new ways of the instruction being designed. And then the last one is the Fire and Rescue Training Program that is official and will launch as we publish this course guide, which, as you know, is an exciting opportunity for students to actually engage in the training program at the Public Safety Training Center and begin earning industry recognized credentials. So they're also new in the course guide, and thank you for your advocacy on that.
Well, thanks.
Did you say that the course guide updates will come to the board at November 20th meeting?
Yes, so you'll see there's a backup document with some of the specific courses that we talked about today, including algebra in grade 7. That then, assuming the board supports us moving it to the full board, goes, I believe, to November 20th meeting.
I support moving it to the full board. I think I want to confirm visual and performing arts courses. Two things. I want to confirm that at this time, anyway, that's exclusively for Academy of Fine Arts.
Correct.
And it would be accurate to say, I mean, you did just say this, but I want to confirm these are not really new courses and not necessarily, would I be accurate to say it's not new, money spent? It is similar, these are renaming courses and similar content to what has been taught?
You said that very well. Definitely not new resources or new staffing that's required. It really is a realigning. I'll read some talking points from Mr. Kurtz, the coordinator. Total credits for students remain the same. The course titles reflect the merger of existing curriculum, allow for depth over breadth to take place.
Yeah, I support this two-pager of high school and middle school courses going to the board, and I think I would support it going on consent agenda.
I would as well, but I can't speak for my board colleagues. We may have someone pull off consent.
Hey.
That's entitlement of any individual board member, but I would as well.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gay has already departed, so, okay. That's awesome. I mean, on the fire and rescue training program, it's been great. It's like a win-win. It can help fulfill volunteer firefighter EMT needs that we have in the county. It can lead to industry certifications. It could lead to career options. So it's nice, it's like teamwork, making the dream work. So, and helping keep the community safe. So it's like a win-win for everybody. Okay. Dr. Murphy, or Mr. Murphy,
Let's look ahead to the
Oh,
December 11th meeting.
we're doing final grades, I'm sure.
But on the agenda for the December 11th meeting, the CNI committee will continue with well-rounded curriculum with visual and performing arts, health, physical education is on the agenda for next month.
Can you remind us, it's the start time 8:30 a.m. Is there another meeting happening that day at 10 a.m.?
I'm wondering if there
Double
is
up with
other,
policy
there's,
that day.
I believe there's other board activity happening that morning.
Maybe be swearing in.
I think that was changed back to 10,
Yeah,
if I'm not
'cause-
mistaken.
It may have been changed back.
That's what I think.
Because I think everything's the first week.
That's
of
in the
December,
afternoon, though.
But I didn't know
Yeah.
when committee appointments are gonna be made, if it was pushed back,
I think originally, this may be a typo in the document that's posted. I think it may have been switched back to 10 for the 11th, but we'll need to follow back up with you in the board office.
Yeah.
I think sending a note to
Yeah.
Catherine and.
Ms. Yao.
Well,
Because I will put in a good word, say we need good people on CNI, so because you're gonna get a whole new committee, so, from board representation, so.
uh,
Okay. Anything for the good of the cause?
I'm glad I had the opportunity to serve on CNI. I had 3 years on policy committee, and glad that I was able to ask questions and have input on curriculum and instruction. So thank you, everyone here, for your extremely hard work and diligence to our students in Frederick County.
Thank you both for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service, and
I echo the same remarks as Mr. Bass, and this is the heart of what we do. So, like, the other stuff is out there, but this is the heart of what it's our curriculum instruction, so it's like the beating heart of what we do.
we feel that, and we appreciate your engagement around it and your great questions around it, and appreciate your service to this committee.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's it.